Playing against OP picks game after game can get really frustrating. With the amount of broken champs in Season 11, there just aren't enough bans to get rid of them all. That's why today, we will be showing you guys the best counter picks to the most played champions for every role. Instead of suffering through games cursing at Riot for these champions' existence, you'll start dominating in no time and end up begging the enemy to lock in that OP pick. Before we get into it, we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on which champions need nerfs the most. I'm getting a little tired of seeing Kai'Sa in every single game, so she'd be a top priority if I were on the balance team. To stay up to date with all the latest champions and build trends, don't forget to subscribe as well. And without any further ado, let's get started. If you're like me and just fed up with Darius being picked every second game, then start making his life miserable by picking Heimer. Heimer is such an easy champ to play, so you can see immediate results and begin stomping this matchup. It's almost impossible for Darius to do anything as long as you play around your E cooldown and use the move speed from your turrets. The only window Darius has is when you don't have your E stun available and he can just pop Ghost and run you down. Once you've used E, just play a little further back and don't let Darius all in. If you can do this, then you'll be able to consistently poke him out, have perma priority, net a huge CS lead, and start 1v2ing when the enemy jungler tries to gank at 6. Make sure you max your W out first. The cooldown drops from 11 to 7 seconds once maxed, and allows you to poke Darius out much easier. If you're smashing the matchup, Darius won't even be able to walk into your turrets, so maxing them out second is the play. Since Darius takes Ghost instead of Teleport, abuse your TP advantage. If you drop low on mana, then use your Teleport so that you keep up your relentless pressure. The build for Heimer is a Liandry's Rush into Azania's second and Demonic Embrace third. Take Comet as your keystone with Inspiration secondary running perfect timing and biscuits. Having access to an early stopwatch is really great in this matchup as it allows you to stall out for your turrets to do all the work while you take no damage. Malphite has been a really solid pick and continues to be played in over 9% of games to start off Season 11. If you're having difficulties with the matchup, then preparing Sylas as a pocket pick can lead to some easy wins. Sylas has even been buffed here in 11.3, and Malphite received an MR nerf a few patches back, so it makes the lane even more favorable for Sylas. In a good chunk of Malphite's matchups, he can just sit back, throw Qs out, and whittle his opponents down. Sylas does an amazing job at negating this due to his mobility and sustain. The first few levels are usually pretty manageable for Malphite, but once Sylas scales towards his level 9, the matchup becomes unplayable for Mal. The constant heals from Sylas' W makes it so that Malphite Q does absolutely nothing, and every trade will begin to go in Sylas' favor. For mid lane Sylas, a Q max is very common, but be sure to max W out first, specifically for this Malphite lane. Laning aside, come mid-game teamfighting, Malphite's ultimate is one of the best in the game for Sylas to steal, which is another reason the matchup is so Sylas favored. Your teamfight power with Malphite ult is disgustingly strong. For the build, rush a Liandry's to give you that nice max HP damage to take down Malphite even easier. Zanya second and Lichbane third is pretty standard stuff. For runes, take Conqueror with Inspiration secondary. The Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic are really important to give you that much needed sustain along with Corrupting Potion. Hecarim has just over a 10% play rate in every single elo bracket, and for good reason, the champ is just busted. One really strong pick you can use to chop down the horse is Olaf. Despite the nerfs to Olaf's W along with Gore Drinker and Sterix, he's still a really solid pick in this matchup specifically. The reason is due to his unmatched sustained dueling strength. Hecarim is a pretty solid duelist himself, but even then, Olaf is just on a different scale. The slow from Olaf's axe puts a dent in the damage coming out of Hecarim's passive, which gives him bonus AD based on his move speed. If you're able to consistently hit him with those axes, then it makes Hecarim's 1v1 so much worse. Both champions will start off very even in the 1v1 fight, but the longer it goes, the more favorable it will become for Olaf. Since Hecarim runs Ghost, it makes the matchup super snowbally for Olaf if he gets ahead. If Hecarim ever runs into Olaf and gets tagged by an axe, then he's completely cut out to dry. Once you complete Gore Drinker, Olaf's 1v1 just becomes that much more insane and impossible for Hec to deal with. Sterix is a really strong second item, and then a Death's Dance third turns you into a tank that can deal an immense amount of damage. There's really just one perfect rune page for Olaf, being Conqueror with Inspiration secondary, taking free boots and approach velocity. Kha'Zix is the second jungler you're going to need a counter for in 11.3, as he's picked over 10% of the time. The number one counter our analysts recommend is Elise. Like Olaf, Elise is also being nerfed for this patch, but the change won't hit her too hard. Regardless, she's still a champ who can do great in this matchup. When in spider form, Elise nullifies Kha'Zix's isolation damage. Her spiderlings count as an ally, and therefore Kha'Zix doesn't receive any bonus damage. This helps Elise out a ton in the 1v1 and makes her dueling power really strong. If Elise gets rolling early on in this matchup, then her one-shot becomes really deadly and can squash the bug in a split second with her full combo. Her sticking power with Repel makes it so that her invade potential is top tier and can just start picking Kha'Zix out left and right. Night Harvester and Rocket Belt both work great as rush items, and then go into a Lich Bane second and Zhonya's third. In games where the enemy has an AD mid and jungle, rushing his Seekers and sitting on that till mid game is a great way to dominate this matchup even harder. For runes, Press the Attack has really seen a rise on Elise in high elo, as she can proc it really fast with her Q applying a stack. Electrocute is still great though, and you can't really go wrong with it, so try out both and see what you like the best. Moving on to mid lane, Yone and Yasuo are both picked at a crazy rate of over 10%. One champion you can use to kill two birds with one stone is Sett. Sett mid is something we've seen a little bit in the past. At one point last season, it was actually Faker's most played champion in solo queue. Bruiser picks like Sett do an amazing job at shutting down Yasuo and Yone. All of Sett's abilities are very difficult to dodge, which means there's very little way to outplay Sett with mobility. If you try and trade onto him, he pulls you in with his E, autos you with Q, and all of a sudden, you've lost half your HP bar. Sett doesn't even need to hit his W to win trades in this matchup, which is pretty insane. Not only does Sett counter Yasuo and Yone early on, but later, it's so difficult for either champ to pick fights since Sett's ultimate can completely counter their all-in. If Sett is near the target you're trying to jump on, then he just point and click presses R, knocks you back into his team, and you just get blown up right away. The build Faker's been running on his Sett mid as of recent has been a stride breaker rush into a dead man's plate. This build just gives Sett so much more mobility and sticking power. The runes are pretty interesting, as Faker's been running with Hail Blades as his keystone. This makes sense due to the synergy it has with Sett's Q, allowing him to burst super hard. For secondary runes, he takes Resolve with Second Wind and Overgrowth. Zed's another mid laner picked at a pretty astronomical rate to start off Season 11, so you're going to want to have Malphite in your pocket to pull out on this matchup. The point-and-click poke Malphite has with his Q is impossible to dodge, so you can use that to whittle Zed down in lane. Once you reach level 6, your all-in potential is super strong, and if Zed's not building any magic resist, you can one-shot him after chunking him to half HP. Just keep harassing Zed with Qs, and then when he's low enough to where your full combo will kill, just dive in with ult and take him out. The later the game goes, the more of a nuisance you'll become. If Zed ever tries to dive in and assassinate your carry, you just ult him before he can snap back to his shadow and burst him out. Sunfire Cape is your rush item, followed by Zhonya's and then Thornmail. Once you have the Zhonya's completed, there's literally no way that Zed can ever kill you, let alone deal enough damage to drop you to half HP. Take Comet for your keystone, as this will add to your ability to poke him out in the lane. Biscuit secondary with Time Warp and a Corrupting Potion start are key to keeping you topped up on mana. The most played champion in the entire game at the moment is Kai'Sa, with an unheard of 43% play rate. Due to her shorter range and weaker early game, picking a lane bully like MF can counter Kai'Sa really well. If you pair MF with any aggressive support, then this lane is pretty much impossible for Kai'Sa to play. The Q damage and E-poke from MF is really difficult for Kai'Sa to match and will allow MF to easily win trades early on. If you can gain that early advantage and continue to snowball, then Kai'Sa will never be able to make an impact on the game. There's a couple different builds for MF right now. Gale Force into Collector and Infinity Edge is the most standard. The new Korean build though is throwing in an Essence Reaver second and avoiding the Collector entirely. With the ER buffs from 11.2, it's now a much better pickup. Kraken Slayer is becoming more popular as well after the Gale Force nerfs, so be sure to try that out as well. Press the Attack has started to become meta again as the best keystone for MF and is being played by almost every pro now. It makes your level 2 all-in super strong, and with so many aggressive supports being played, you can get lots of early kills in this Kai'Sa matchup. Secondary runes are from the Domination tree with Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter. Jhin continues to follow right behind Kai'Sa as the second most played ADC. picking a carry with a lot of burst who can punish Jin's reload time is a great option. For that reason, we recommend using Tristana as a counter to Jin. With Hail of Blades and her Q attack speed, Tristana can very quickly get off a fully charged E, and this damage is very difficult for most ADCs to match. With Tristana's W, she's the best ADC at punishing Jin when he's reloading, and if played with someone like Maokai or Leona, it's even more insane. You can set up cheese plays where you just sit in a bush, wait for Jin to walk up, and use all 4 of his bullets to push the wave, and then jump right onto him for a free kill. All in all, Tristana has the ability to take over this matchup early on, and then scales into the late game just as well as Jin does. And we almost forgot, once you pick up Kraken Slayer, your burst just rises to a whole other level. The true damage from Kraken can be procced almost instantly due to Hail of Blades, giving Triss so much upfront damage. Go into Storm Razor second for even more burst, and then Infinity Edge third for all-out aggression, or Fire Cannon for the safer route. As if we haven't emphasized this enough already, HOB is Trist's best keystone, and then pair it with Precision Secondary running Triumph and Bloodline. Thresh is the most played support in the game across every elo bracket. A very underrated yet strong champ you can play into him is Shaco. Shaco support is a pretty niche pick, but can perform well into Thresh due to his boxes. If you place them down and your ADC can position around them, then it really limits Thresh's pick and engage potential. On top of this, the blink from Shaco Q makes it almost impossible for Thresh to ever hit you with a hook. Even if you do get hooked, as long as you're standing beside a box, he'll get feared immediately as he flies in and won't be able to follow up with any more damage. As Thresh is feared, you and your ADC can turn and take him down. Basically, what it comes down to is Shaco just doesn't allow Thresh to do what he wants and limits his ability to play aggressive. The build for Shaco support is an Imperial Mandate Rush into a Chemtech Putrefier and Zanya's Hourglass. Shaco's boxes just synergize really well with both Mandate and Putrefier. Comet is his best keystone with Boots and Biscuits in the secondary tree. And to round everything out here, Leona is the final pick that you'll want to have a counter for, as she's the second most played support, picked in around 12% of games. Galio will be the pick our analysts recommend in this matchup. You can even play Shaco here as well and see really good success, but we wanted to make sure to include a different counter for every single champ. The reason Galio performs so well is simply due to his reliable and easy to execute peel. As long as you're sitting beside your ADC and are ready with your taunt, Leona never has the ability to engage first. If Leona tries to E in, you taunt her before she can even get her stun off. Like the Shaco pick, Galio is amazing at shutting down exactly what Leona wants to achieve. She wants to be able to play super aggro and look for those early all-in kills, but Galio completely neutralizes that. If the peel from his W wasn't already enough, Galio also gets the free magic shield from the same spell, so if Leona tries to go in, she won't deal any meaningful damage. The build for Galio can vary based on the game and preference. If you want stronger peel and engage power, then Shrelia's is a great rush into Zanya's and then Knight's Vow. The more popular build in high elo is a Locket Rush into Knight's Vow and then Thornmail. This one is the more defensive option. There's honestly so many great builds for Galio, so experiment and see what you like best. On the other hand, runes are way more straightforward. Aftershock is the best keystone for every game and takes sorcery secondary with Nimbus and Celerity. Alright, that's going to be all for today, everyone. Now that you're all set up with the best counters for all the OP picks, you can relieve the suffering you've had in the past and start stomping these matchups. For more videos like this one, don't forget to drop a sub. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you in the next one.